Oh my gosh. So I would have been 24, 25 at the time. I was
Mm.
so excited. I had so much curiosity just to learn it all and try it all. I remember building my own website. This is back when Craigslist was really big. I was advertising on Craigslist. My dad's like, "What are you doing?" And I would go and meet people that I met on Craigslist and in their houses and
Hey there, friends. This is Dennis Geelen, author of the Happy Accidents newsletter and the book, The Accidental Solopreneur. Welcome to another episode of the Happy Accidents podcast, where we dive into true stories of wildly successful people, products, or businesses, all of which can trace their success back to a chance encounter, a serendipitous event, or a fluke invention. In each episode, we unravel the tales of unexpected triumphs and the remarkable journeys that led to their incredible success. I'm on a mission to explore the fascinating world of happy accidents, and I'm thrilled to have you along for the ride. So, why should you tune in? Well, besides the entertainment value of these incredible stories, there's a hidden treasure trove of lessons that we can learn from them. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a creative mind, or simply someone who enjoys a good narrative, this podcast is your go-to source for inspiring stories and valuable insights. Get ready for a roller coaster ride of surprises, a dash of luck, and a sprinkle of wisdom. This is the Happy Accidents Podcast, where success meets serendipity. Let's jump into today's adventure. Kayla McGuire is the founder of Kayla McGuire Consulting. Through her consulting company, she has built and executed project management training programs, coached hundreds of project managers on freelancing and navigating ambiguity, and advised founders on operational strategy and project best practices, leading to growth and scale. On top of this, her ebook, the Freelance Project Manager Guidebook, has served as a blueprint for aspiring freelancers worldwide. Kayla lives in Bentonville, Arkansas, where apparently it's raining right now, with her daughter and their lovable canine companion, Murray. Kayla McGuire, welcome to the Happy Accidents podcast.
Hi, Dennis. I am so excited to be here. And I have to say, I love the Canadian way of saying project, project. I had to do a double take there. And the other thing I wanted to tell you is I love the intro music that you
Mm,
have for the podcast because it makes me feel like I'm really going somewhere good.
mm, mm. Well, fun fact, my son actually created that and produced that. He's quite the audio guy. He's been into music his whole life, and now he produces music for other people. So when I was coming up with the podcast, I was like, Damon, do you think you could come up with like a 1 minute kind of intro? I didn't even have to give him anything. He just came up with that, and I was like, it's perfect. So there we go.
Oh,
That
you
was
did
it
good.
on the spot. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
love
did
it.
really good.
So yeah. Well, listen, I'm so excited to have you on as a guest. I know you and I have chatted before, and it turns out we have some similar accidental experiences that I want to dive into on the episode today. Um, Currently, you have a project management consulting company, not project, as the Canadians would say. You have a YouTube channel where you share tips and strategies on project management and freelancing, and you help other freelancers get started. You are a busy lady. But I assume if I was to go back 20, 25 years in time, this is probably not what you had in mind. I'm assuming probably not where you thought you were going to end up. So I want to dig into that a little bit. How did you get here? Let me just start by asking you, as a child, were you like super organized? Did you like planning stuff? Was it like in your blood from the beginning?
I love this question because I was. And the weird thing
Mm,
is, I had this game that I would play with my dolls or like just people in my imagination where I would organize and plan out their day. Like I would map it out and I would send them off with literally checklists that
oh
they
my
had to
goodness.
accomplish. And this was the game that I played as a child, but I had no
Wow.
idea what project management was. I didn't know what
Wow.
any of that kind of thing was.
Mm,
Actually, what I wanted to be was a librarian and an author. I loved books.
Oh, wow.
And that's what I wanted to do. I've talked to you about
Mm.
that a little, about writing a book, and
Yep.
that is
Yep.
definitely on my radar.
Yeah. You definitely need to write a book. So it turns out it sounds like you had this in you. You are this naturally organized person. You like to plan, you like checklists. You and my wife should talk. She's got a checklist for everything. Um, but you didn't aspire, you didn't even know what project management was. It wasn't something that was on your radar. I think if I go back through your timeline, you started off in the finance industry. Is that correct?
Oh my gosh, yes. And I did because, not because I wanted to, but I got an internship right after college. Actually, I'd been working as a bank teller in high
Mm,
school and in
okay.
college. Then I kind of natural trajectory.
Yep.
I majored in business, and then I got offered this internship at a bank. And of course, my parents are like, that sounds really good, a career in finance. I was
Yep.
miserable. I
Mm,
hated it. And it's so interesting because every kind of like personality test, or like those tests they give you to see what career path you should go for, they
yep.
all told me I should go for like a behind the scenes kind of a finance data nerd type of a job.
Mm,
And I could do that well, but I'm not necessarily a behind the scenes person. I am a people person, which I have
right.
learned through my project management career.
Mm. So originally wanted to be a librarian, went to school for business, ended up in finance. So that was a bit of a
Yeah,
roundabout way of ending up. You hated finance.
hated it.
What happened? How did you get out of finance?
I had a job as a financial analyst. I'd actually picked up and moved to Denver from
Mm,
like 2 states away, 2 or 3 states away, and on a whim. And I worked as a financial analyst. This was in 2008. I landed the job,
ooh,
and it
bad
wasn't
time to be
6 months.
in finance.
Oh, and it was for a hospitality company. So
Oh
it's
boy.
like, yeah, this is not going in a good direction. And there I was 6 months after I got the job, and they said, okay,
Mm,
your position's eliminated. And I just remember it being this really dramatic moment. I had only heard about layoffs like in the movies. It was just
right.
a really dramatic moment, but they didn't lay me off. They moved me to a different position. It was one of those things where I wish they would have laid me off
Oh boy.
because the position I was moved to was pretty bad. And so while I was working in that position for the next 6 months, I basically planned my exit strategy. I built a
Mm,
business, and I left to start a dog walking business. And
wow.
yeah, so that's what I did for about the next 3 or 4 years. And that was an interesting lesson itself. But I've always had this draw to entrepreneurship and business. When I was in college, that was my favorite course. My favorite course was entrepreneurship. And I helped my uncle open a coffee shop during my
Okay.
junior and senior year. So I just really fell in love with business and starting a business. And I knew that that was something that I always wanted to do. So the dog walking
Right.
thing was kind of like, I'm going to try this out and see how it goes.
Yeah. So that was your first real foray into entrepreneurship yourself. I mean, you helped your
That was
uncle.
the
That was
first,
his,
yep.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that would have been a huge learning experience. I mean, anybody who has started their own business, you have to wear so many hats and learn so much about branding and marketing and sales and how to attract clients and how to pitch your offer. Like that must have been, learning through a fire hose for you. Was it a good experience or was it, whoa, I didn't realize what I was getting into?
Oh my gosh. So I would have been 24, 25 at the time. I was
Mm,
so excited. I had so much curiosity just to learn it all and try it all. I remember building my own website. This is back when Craigslist was really big. I was advertising on Craigslist. My dad's like, "What are you doing?" And I would go and meet people that I met on Craigslist and in their houses, and walk their dogs, and it was all kinds of
Right.
like sketchiness happening, but I tried all of it. I remember all of it. I was doing my own books, keeping my own books, doing all of the client work, all of the dog walking for a while until I hired a
Wow.
couple people to help me because,
Okay.
as you can imagine, that's very physically exhausting. But
Yes.
yeah, it was an experience.
Yeah. So not only did you learn how to start the business, you started to learn how to grow it. You started hiring employees, and okay, in order for this to work, I can't just be the only person. I can't be just constantly trading my time.
Right.
Other people have to. So that again is a whole other experience. How do I hire people, interview people? How do I know how to onboard them and what tasks to give them? So you were getting like a business 101 just from this dog walking business.
It was wild.
Yeah.
It was good. I look back on those times. I just have such fond memories, but I did. I learned a bunch and I eventually burned out,
Mm,
which I didn't know what burnout was. I didn't think that was possible for me. It's
mm,
like, I could do all the things all at once.
right.
But I ended up burning out. And this is where I always tell people, have a mentor. Like, you need to have at least a couple of mentors who are a few steps ahead of you, who have been there before, because I ended up literally giving my business away. I didn't even know I could sell it. Like, I didn't know
Right.
that that was an option.
Oh
I
boy.
literally gave my business away, the business that I had grown for four
Mm,
years, my client list, all my clients. I just gave it away because I
wow.
wanted out. And not like it was worth this incredible sum,
Right.
but it's a lesson. I look back on that
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
realize that that was a lesson.
Right. Wow. So you have this 4-year experience of starting and growing and scaling and then giving away
Giving
a
it away.
business. You experience burnout. That's something that happens to somebody else, not me, but there you are going through it.
Yep.
So what next? After you shut down the business, what was your next move?
Well, my next move was well timed because the job that I told you about in 2008, where I was laid off, I had kept in touch with the person who had hired me. And
Mm,
he had actually gone and started to work for a software startup company. And he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I think you'd be a good fit to join the team and work with us," as I think my title was account manager.
okay.
And it was just a well-timed thing where I was like, okay, I'm ready to be done with the dog walking thing. Time for me to move on. He reached out, and I don't know, what would you call that, Dennis? Is that like serendipity, or is
You know
that
exactly what I would call it. That's a happy accident. Yeah.
as a
So
happy accident? Yeah.
wow.
So I went and worked for this startup company as the 12th person hired, and I got to experience what it's like to bootstrap a company. And I watched as the owners actually did that and sold it, which is the
Mm,
dream of every software company, every
yeah.
software tech company. I worked there for 6 years. I had a variety of different roles. That's where I discovered that project management was a thing.
Yes.
And after that job, I moved on to another tech startup that crashed and burned. So I had
Mm,
these kind of two experiences back to back, watching a business be grown and scaled and sold, and then another
yeah.
one that made a bunch of mistakes. We had some fundraising and it just crashed and burned.
Yeah. And this is where I really want to dig in with you today because well, two things. You were experiencing so much. First of all, your own business, crash course in how to start, grow, scale, brand, market, sales. And then you're working for this startup where you get a front row seat on how they did it and then exited
Yep.
and sold the company. You're wearing all these different hats, you're doing all these different roles. That's what I like to call you're increasing your luck surface area, right? All these
Right.
different things that you're experiencing, every single one is opening a new door for you. It's creating new opportunities. And you wrote about this in a post recently on LinkedIn where you called yourself an accidental project manager and an
Yeah.
accidental freelancer. I want to dig in because you mentioned it when I was at this software company. That's when I first heard about project management. Can you just retell that part of the story?
Yeah. So I'm working at this tech startup company, and I had a friend. She didn't work for that company. She actually worked for a big pharmaceutical company.
Mm,
And she was a project manager, or had just discovered project management at that company. We have a lot in common. We grew up together. And I remember having this conversation with her, and she's like, "This is what a project manager does." And she's telling me about it. And I was thinking, project management is for like people in construction, or that was what I thought in my mind, that was project management was a construction thing. But as she's telling me about it, I thought, wow, no, I think I'm a project manager. So then I go out, I get the books, I start reading about it. And it's something clicked to where I was like, no, this
mm,
is what I am. I didn't mean to be this, but this is what I am. And I just
mm.
became so excited about everything project management, which sounds incredibly nerdy, but I did. I just geeked out over project management.
That's awesome. Well, I can just imagine the revelation, like, wow, there's actually a title for this. There's a role. Uh, this had to be like bringing you back to your youth. Like, I'm a natural planner. I'm a natural
Yeah.
organizer. I used to do this as a game as a kid, and I could get paid for this. So what a great serendipitous thing that must have been, just to be finding this out through your friend and realizing, wow, that's a path for me. That's something that I can actually have a career in.
It was exciting. I remember having a conversation with my dad about it, and I was telling him about some of the certifications that go along with project management. And he was like, "I don't know about this. This doesn't sound legit. Are you sure?" And I was like, "No, it's a thing." And I think I discovered it at a very opportune time, because project management is so important now. We need it everywhere, right? And especially with the advent of AI and things becoming more tech-based, we need people who can oversee and manage people and processes and projects and all of this. And that's really what project management teaches us. So
Mhm.
I'm excited that I discovered it at just the right
Yeah,
time
yeah,
to really jump into it and start building my project management career.
yeah. And it really is one of those things that transcends industry or jobs or roles, like the basics, the foundations, the principles of managing and planning and executing projects. There might be nuances from different industries, but it's the same principles that you're applying, right? So
They say Project Management Institute reports that, and I'm going to get this statistic wrong, so I'm just going to be broad with it, but it's something like 80 to 90% of project management is about communication skills.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
whatever that
yeah,
tells you.
yeah. I think I also saw a stat from PMI that said a good majority of senior leaders actually have project management as their background. They kind of grow up to be C-suite executives, right?
I believe it. I mean,
Yeah,
you have to, because there's this element of project management where we need to be able to see the big picture, but we also have to be able to dial it back and see all the granular little pieces. And that's something that CEOs are really good at, senior leaders are really good at, seeing the big picture, but also recognizing all the little pieces that have to come together.
right. Okay, so that's the part of the story where you kind of accidentally fell into project management. You had this chance conversation with your friend who describes project management to you. You're like, oh my goodness, that's me.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's my personality and everything written out in front of me. How about the accidental freelancer part?
Oh my gosh. So this one's a little more dramatic, but a little bit of drama here. So I told you I had the job at the startup, and we achieved the dream and sold. And then I moved on to a different startup company, and we literally just crashed and burned. We weren't able to
Mm,
capture that next round of funding that we needed. And this happened to occur during the second week of February 2020. So
Mm.
there I am. I'm laid off in February of 2020.
Mm.
And just so happened, I had recently gone through a series of life experiences, which had effectively leveled me in many ways. I was starting
Mm.
over financially. I was living in a remote rural Arkansas town, which is in the middle of nowhere. I didn't have
Mm.
a support system around me. I was in a situation that wasn't ideal for me, and I was just kind of trying to get by and live, sort of a thing.
Mm.
And so then there I am. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and the pandemic hits and school's out. So I'm homeschooling my 5-year-old. I'm laid off thinking, what am I going to do next? I don't live in a city. I can't, go out and meet people and try to land a job. I'm just here in a little apartment by myself. What am I going to do? And I thought, you know what kind of brings me back to my happy place? And this sounds so cheesy, but it was everything that I had experienced with project management and how I saw that project management can not only build a business, but I could probably rebuild my life with it too.
Mm.
And so that's what I'm going to try to do. And I just started talking about project management on a blog that I started one night. I just said, I'm going to start blogging. And a friend said, you know what, you need to do video, which I thought was the most insane thing to do ever. I thought, are you crazy? I'm not going to get on YouTube and start talking about this stuff. But I did. I started posting videos on YouTube. I didn't even know how to edit them. This was very basic, but I just started posting them and they made me feel better. They made me feel
Mm.
better. And I thought, I've learned a lot from my experiences, lessons learned, mistakes I made. I just want to put this out there so I can share it with other people and help other people who might have been me 5 years ago and not known that they were a project manager. So that's who I'm
Right.
going to talk to through my videos. And that's what I did. If you watch my videos, I'm just talking to my audience, and it brought me a lot of joy. But the one thing that I didn't expect ever to happen from that was that people reached out to me, and not just any people, but people who wanted to hire me and
Mm.
people who did hire me and became lovely clients of mine, some who I still work with to this day, 4 years later. And it's just been the most amazing experience.
I love that. And that I know when you and I first connected and chatted, we kind of shared stories and it was like that was the part that really resonated with me because it's very similar to my story. I didn't expect to ever coach people on how to do what they're doing, but just because I was sharing my journey on LinkedIn, a bunch of people started reaching out saying, "Hey, I want to do what you're doing. Can you help me?" And then when you tell me your story, it's like, wow, almost the exact same thing. Although you started with YouTube, um, completely unintentional. For you, it was more of a, I just need an outlet. I'm going through some stuff.
Yeah.
I just love project management. I want to share this with the world. And next thing you know, you're getting clients from it. I just love that story and how you've now taken that and capitalized on it. So
Yeah.
the other unexpected part I think that's happened with you is beyond helping companies with their project management, you've also had people reach out and say, "Hey, I also want to be a freelancer like you are. Can you help me?" Right?
Yeah. So you asked how I became an accidental freelancer. That YouTube's the story of how I
Yeah.
became an accidental freelancer. And then it developed into uh, accidentally helping other freelancers because at some point, I started showing up on LinkedIn. And that was really the catalyst
Yeah.
to, um, helping freelancers. I started showing up on LinkedIn and I really liked what I was reading and what I was seeing. LinkedIn wasn't what it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago when I first opened my account. And I thought, wow, I really like this. And I started following some people, started commenting. And then one day, like we all do, we get brave enough to actually post our own thing. And I've been posting on there, I guess, as at the time of this recording, about a year and a half, and you get braver and braver and you start sharing parts of your story and things that have worked for you, mistakes that you've made. And that was the point where I really started connecting with people and actually building a community, not
Hmm.
just, I don't know, an audience or followers, but like an actual community of people who were interested in, like, hey, I really like what you're doing and the way that you've built your business. How could I do that? Like, what are some
Hmm.
steps that I could take to
Yeah.
intentionally build my business in a similar way? Because I'm really passionate about attracting the right type of clients and doing work that fills you up. And I think that resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah. I just love your content on LinkedIn and YouTube. I'm a big fan of your videos and your posts. I know we engage with each other
Thank you.
quite a bit, and what you're saying is exactly right. You show up, you're authentic, you always bring, lots of thoughtful content. Sometimes it's very tactical about freelancing or project management. Sometimes it's a little more just about being a solopreneur and how to
Yeah.
get by some days, right? But you can see why your content really does resonate with people. I want to dig in a little bit with you about the learnings through this. Quite the journey. I mean, you start
Mm.
off admittedly thinking, I love books, librarian or author, maybe is for me. You end up in finance. That turns into, going through the 2008 financial crisis, where you then decide, I'm going to do my own thing, start up my own dog walking business. You have a
Yeah.
4 year experience in entrepreneurship. Once you kind of hit burnout phase there, you jump into the SaaS world and you get to see the whole startup industry from the inside, and you learn tremendously from that. And then you experience COVID and lay off there, and you reinvent yourself. You just had so many different experiences, and your journey's gone in so many different directions. I mean, I have to assume that the way it's unfolded, with the layoffs, with the unexpected revelations that you've had, with the unintended opportunities, has this changed the way that you think about planning and opportunities?
Oh my gosh, yes, immensely. Because uh, when I tell you about myself as a child and as a teenager and as a person that worked in finance, I was very structured and rigid. I had the checklist, but you couldn't deviate from the checklist. Like that
Hmm.
was the number one rule, right? Is everything has to happen as planned. I used to be the person that had the 5, 10, 15, 20-year plan. I think at one point I even had an entire plan for my life. And I was like, okay, are we on track? Now I realize that that's not how it happens, and that's such a beautiful thing. I think
Hmm.
it's so much more powerful that that's not how it happens than
Yeah,
if I controlled everything.
right.
And it's really given me courage to trust in. I'm a person that believes everything happens for a reason. I believe that very deeply, that there's reason and purpose for everything.
Hmm.
But we have responsibility to take inspired action.
Yeah,
And I think this is kind of when you talk about increasing your luck surface area, to me that's saying, I have responsibility to take inspired action, to put myself out there and to take appropriate risks. And that's the only way my life is going to open up and allow things like landing clients from YouTube videos. How does that
yeah,
happen if I don't take the action to actually
yeah,
record and upload a video? It doesn't
yeah,
happen.
yeah, yeah. No, I love that. I read a book recently called Fluke. Imagine that. Uh, and the author states in there, we control nothing, but we influence everything. And it kind of goes along with what you're saying. Like, we do not have control over what's going to happen to us, but we have a great influence over allowing things to happen and bringing more opportunities our way. We don't know which ones they're going to be. We don't control exactly what the outcome is going to be, but we have a great influence over it. So I just love that you're taking those chances, you're taking those opportunities, you're taking those risks, not knowing exactly what's going to happen, but you know something's going to happen. So,
Something's
um,
gonna happen. Yeah. And
yeah,
I just believe that that's the only way to live
yeah.
life now.
Do you think it's strange for a project manager to kind of have this viewpoint now that, you know, not everything is going to happen as a result of being meticulously planned out?
It is, I think it is a little bit, right? But Um, it makes me such a stronger project manager, coach, business strategist. The teams that I work with, I really enjoy having coaching sessions with them around like, hey, what if everything doesn't happen as planned? And we have these wonderful conversations about letting go a little bit of
Mm,
control and kind of opening ourselves up to opportunity and seeing what could
yeah,
happen, because when we're so structured and rigid and controlled, it not only like it's kind of a miserable way to be. That's not how we're
yeah,
supposed to be
yeah,
as people, as human beings. We're supposed to experience the world.
yeah,
And we can't do that if we're trying to control everything. I feel that way in
yeah,
business too.
yeah, yeah. And there's just so many things outside of our control. There's too many factors. We can't account for everything, and you'll go crazy trying,
Yeah.
and it's never going to go 100% according to plan. Anyway, unless you're building widgets that you've built a million times,
Yeah.
right? But most projects aren't building widgets, it's doing something new. And there's always that unknown factor. There's always that random chaos chance factor that
Always.
you just have to embrace, I guess, right? Okay,
Always.
I want to dig in and get your thoughts on a few things. So your your journey has had all kinds of different twists and turns, like we said, but there's been a few different moments that have completely changed your trajectory over your journey. I like to kind of pinpoint a couple of those and say, what if? And get
Okay.
your take on what do you think may have happened? So, what if you
Well, this is
hadn't
fun.
been,
Okay.
yeah, what if you hadn't been laid off in 2008?
Oh
How might your
man.
life have been completely different now?
Oh my gosh, right? What if I hadn't been laid off in 2008?
Hmm.
I probably would have stayed at that company for a while because I actually enjoyed that position. I
Mm,
enjoyed it. Even though I was a financial analyst, I got to travel around to
right,
hotels all around the country and help with implementing systems. I probably would have
right.
stayed there. I wouldn't have started the dog walking thing. I wouldn't have had that crash course.
Yeah,
So, which was important for me to learn what I learned during that time. And I
yeah,
think it helped me understand risk a little better. It helped me understand all of that, how to build a business. So then
yeah.
would I have had the bravery to start my freelancing business now? I don't know. I don't know if I
Hmm.
would have had
Yeah,
all those building blocks in
yeah.
place.
Yeah, it's kind of neat to think like, boy, that one event in my life almost 20 years ago has completely changed who I am and the
Yeah.
trajectory I've been on, right? Okay, so what if your friend back then hadn't shared her discovery of project management with you?
I probably would have still thought that I probably would have had a really hard time describing what I do.
Mm,
Maybe I would have discovered I was a project manager a different way,
right.
but I remember I was having a really hard time understanding what it was that I did and what I was good at and how I could market my skills in the workplace. I didn't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. 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 It could have happened a month later, a year later, 2 years later, where you could have discovered, but maybe not, or maybe it would have unfolded very differently. It's hard to know. What about YouTube? What if you hadn't have taken that chance and said, I'm gonna start posting some videos on YouTube?
That's the big one for me.
Mm,
That's the really big one for me because it has led to I'm even going to get teary-eyed because the clients that I have met on YouTube are absolutely amazing. I
mm,
travel to see them frequently, and if I didn't have those people in my life, like not only would I not have them as clients and I may not have jumped into my consulting business, I probably wouldn't have.
Yeah.
but I wouldn't have those people in my life. And that makes me
Mm.
sad.
Yeah. 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 And just incredible how taking that one bold step has unlocked so much for you, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I like to kind of look back at those different points, those different catalysts in life and say, what if it had gone a little bit differently? And boy, it's tough to envision, but a few things in our lives make a huge difference.
Huge difference.
Okay, let's before we wrap up, let's talk about some fun stuff, some fun facts. So you shared a couple things with me before
Oh gosh, I
the
can't remember.
podcast. Well, you're about to be reminded. So, one personal fun fact about you that you told me is you can recite all 50 states in alphabetical order. You said that's your one and only party trick.
It's my one and only party trick. I am not going to do it right now. However,
So how did that even come about?
okay, so it's a good question. I learned a song when I was a child in elementary
Mm,
school, and we sang the states: Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut. Yeah. So
that's awesome. Obviously, it stuck with you.
it's stuck. It's not going
Yeah,
anywhere.
yeah. So another fun fact about you, you had another entrepreneurial side hustle venture where you were a five-star Airbnb superhost for 5 years.
I did. Yeah, which was an amazing experience. I had actually a couple different properties at the time, and I remember I was drawn to hospitality. I'd always been drawn to hospitality. I told you I worked for a hospitality company as a financial analyst, and I always kind of
Hmm.
wanted to have, what would it feel like to have my own bed and breakfast kind of a
Right.
situation. So I had a couple Airbnbs, little cottage kind of situations, and I met some really amazing people, some great guests, had some
Mm,
real doozies of guests as well. And I learned how to clean very efficiently.
mm.
I learned the importance of always keeping toilet paper on hand, and just a lot of really good lessons with the
Yeah.
Airbnbs.
Oh, very good. And were you on site? Were these on your location or were these separate locations that you rented out?
I was on site. I was
Mm,
on site. I had actually three different units, and I lived in one, and then I had
okay.
two that were rented out,
Oh, very good.
Airbnb.
Yep. So you
Yeah,
you had the full on experience then.
I was the host. Yep.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, and finally, you shared your favorite quote with me, which was, if you don't change, you don't grow. If you don't grow, you aren't really living. Why does that mean so much to you?
Oh my gosh. My mom gave me a bookmark with that quote on it when I was very, very young. I have since lost the bookmark, but
Mm,
that just always stuck with me as a child and into adulthood. And when I think about the importance of, like, what is life all about? That's one of the things that stands out to me is
mm,
is we're not meant to stay stagnant. We're meant to open ourselves up to possibilities, to
wow.
opportunity, and the only way to do that is to embrace change. And it's
Yeah.
hard, but we have to.
Yeah. Well, after hearing your story and all the change you've been through, I think you've definitely lived that out. I'm sure your mom would agree with that. If we don't change, we don't grow. If we don't grow, we aren't really living. Well,
Yes.
it sounds like you've been living.
Oh, thank you, Dennis.
Kayla, where can people go to connect with you?
My website is the best location. It's kaylamcguire.com. I am also on LinkedIn just about every day, hanging out with Dennis. So on LinkedIn as well, and my YouTube channel. I would love to have folks check me out on my YouTube channel as well. And it's Kayla
Perfect.
McGuire is the name of my
We'll
channel.
uh, we'll put the links to all those in the show notes. And Kayla, thank you so much for being on the Happy Accidents podcast, for sharing your story. I know I found it super inspiring.
Thank you, Dennis. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the Happy Accidents podcast. I hope you find these stories as intriguing and insightful as I do. But make sure you don't miss an episode. You can subscribe to my Accidental Solopreneur channel on YouTube and watch these episodes in video form, or subscribe to the Happy Accidents podcast on Apple and Spotify for your listening pleasure. Until next time, stay lucky, my friends.